Hey folks, Jamie here. Thank you for tuning in. Before we get started, I would like for you to take a moment and go down below and hit the like and subscribe buttons. Maybe leave a comment. If you're really feeling generous, maybe share this video to your social media feeds. What that does is make it a lot easier for other people to find a moment of Tiki. I really appreciate it and it helps out a lot. Thanks. Now, on with the show. Welcome to another episode of Moment of Tiki, coming to you from the Lagoon of Mystery, my home tiki bar here in Central Texas. As I've said previously, one of the areas that I've been most negligent on in developing my tiki bar is lighting, and I am working on rectifying that. And today's episode is going to focus on float lamps. Japanese glass float lamps. Now, these are not authentic Japanese float lamps. They're not even authentic Japanese floats. These are relatively inexpensive tourist pieces, just blown glass, mass-produced. They are, however, much cheaper than the authentic kind. Now, you can see there's this pretty crummy twine rope netting around them. We need to replace that. But for sake of economy, converting these into float lamps is a good deal. So what we're going to do today is turn these into float lamps, and y'all can come along for the ride. Now, before we get started, I just want to clarify that this is the process through which I went to create glass fish floats. This isn't necessarily the best way or the proper way, although I do try to go through all the necessary safety precautions. I may make mistakes, so if you're going to try this at home, do your due diligence, check out other YouTube channels, do your research, and make sure you are very, very safe in this endeavor. So I have the fish float. I cut away the twine netting and I wrapped it in a beach towel right here with the little nipple part, which is the bottom pointing down, so I can identify what the top is. Now, to do this, we're going to cut using a glass cutting bit. It's a circular opening in there, turns with the drill, and it's got a lot of fine diamonds embedded here, so it will grind through the glass. Now, the important thing to remember is that glass is a very hard, very brittle surface. So we need to keep it lubricated at all times, and that's what this bottle here is for. This is just a regular soda bottle, plastic, and I've drilled a small hole here and filled it with water. When I peel this tape back, a stream of water is going to come here and keep the cutting surface lubricated. You'll notice this is an electric drill, so you want to make sure that the electric drill part does not come into contact with the water, because that could be very bad. I'm using cut-resistant gloves to protect my hands, and I've got a pair of goggles to protect my eyes in case the glass shatters. Now, I've got it set up where the water is going to drain off to the side and not mix with electricity. Before you do any of this, though, I recommend you do some practice on, say, a wine bottle before you attempt to cut even the relatively inexpensive glass fish float, because even the cheap versions are more money than most of us want to put together, okay? So we have the float, we have the towel, we have the water as lubricant, we have the drill, we have the safety glasses, and we've got the safety gloves. Is there anything I'm forgetting? Yes, one more thing. A guide for the bit. There is no center point on here, self-driving if you're cutting into wood. This is a smooth surface, so if you try to just drill straight into this without any kind of guide, your bit's gonna like skitter all around the surface, scratching it up, and you run the risk of, breakage, shattering. So what I did here is drill a hole through this piece of wood that is the approximately slightly wider than the bit that I'm using. So what I'm going to do is hold this in place for the initial cut with the bit until it gets some purchase and there are grooves cut into the glass. And once I have that, then I'm going to take this away and this will be self-guiding from that point on. Okay, so here we go. Now I must say, I forgot to say this earlier, but when you're cutting, the idea is to go slow and don't press down. Don't put any extra weight on the cut. Just let the weight of the drill itself pull it down. The faster you go, the harder you push, the more likely you are to break, shatter, damage the glass. So just go very slowly, very gently. Now, as you approach breakthrough, you can often see beads of water appear on the inside of the glass. That means you've gotten some holes in there you're almost through. In that case, you want to slow down the drill, slow it down so it goes through as gently as possible and you reduce the chance of any catastrophic breaks or fracturing. Whew. Oh, goodness gracious. Now I know why they charge more than $100 for glass fish floats, because this is crazy. Look how much water soaked in there. And this is the glass.
When I first started working on these fish float lamps, I initially assumed that the actual floats, the authentic ones, the ones that were used as floats for longline Japanese fish nets in the Pacific, would be thicker and of higher quality than the less expensive versions sold in tourist shops. As you can see, blue one here is a little more than ½ an inch thick, and the red one is right at ½ an inch. But another that I did is less than ¼ an inch, only about 1/8 of an inch thick. So with the cheap float versions, you have 3 different sizes. One that's super thin, one that's fairly thick, and another that's even thicker. Another interesting point is that the cheaper floats have clear glass most of the way with a layer of blue and a single layer of red in there, and the thinnest of all just has a single layer of blue. I found that very interesting. What I found of equal interest is the fact that there is just about as much variety and variation in the authentic fish floats. These 3 glass pieces came from floats that I got from Nautical Antique Warehouse in Galveston. Each one of these is an authentic fish float. They had barnacle scars to show for it. You can see that each of these is a different depth. First 2 are approximately 1 centimeter deep, a little less than ½ an inch, but then you have the third one that is less than 1/4 of an inch.
that variety is astonishing, and just shows that there is no direct correlation between authenticity and tourist pieces as far as the thickness of the glass and the floats used. I will, however, note that the green glass goes all the way through. It's not just a colored layer sandwiched in between clear glass. It's solid green glass all the way through. So that is one difference between the authentic floats and the tourist pieces. So we've removed those crappy twine nettings from around the globes, and we are going to replace them. And then of course, since we're going through all this effort, we're going to replace them with something better. I am going to use 1/4 inch sisal rope right here, which is just about the perfect size for this sort of thing. 1/4 inch for these size globes work well because you'll be able to knot it. If you go larger, 1/2 inch, that rope is going to be too thick to get really good knots in it. So you would save that for 12 or 14 inch globes if you're lucky enough to have glass floats that large. Before we can use this though, we need to whip the end of the rope. Now, what whipping is taking string and tying a specific knot around the end so that it doesn't fray. Right now, you might not be able to see it, it's got tape wrapped around either end to keep the rope from unraveling. And if you go through all the trouble of knotting a net for your fish float, you don't want it to start becoming unraveled over time. So first up, whip the rope. Whipping the rope is a very simple knot. You form a loop with a little bit of extra, then you take the long section of rope, string, and you just start looping it around over and over, working your way up the length of the rope. Once you get to the top end, slide the string through the loop that you've left yourself. Slide the string through the loop of the rope that you've left yourself. Then take the bottom and pull it in so the loop pulls the rest of the string down into the knot. Once you have that done, simply trim the edges and you're done. That's a little bit more than you need, but it gets the job done. Dyeing the rope is fairly simple and straightforward. Add the rope to the bucket. Add about a 1/4 amount of the RIT dark brown dye and add hot water, about 2 gallons here. And this is designed to dye in a washing machine, but this works well too. Just agitate and let sit. Longer the rope sits in the dye, the deeper, richer the color will be. We have the hole here, and I have gotten number 11 corks to fill that. But in order to get the inside lighted, I need to run the wire through the cork. So that's what we're going to do now. The cork, and I have the drill, and we're going to drill right in the middle. So we have the cork. Now we run the wire through the cork. Tight fit, but that's perfectly all right. Next step is to connect the wire to these sockets. I got these sockets. I harvested several of them from a stand-up cheap tulip lamp with like 5 sockets, and so no need to let these good sockets go to waste. So we're going to use it in float lamps. I am stripping the wire, stripping the insulation from the wire. Then twisting the strands so they're easier to work with. Now we are going to connect the power to the socket. I'm going to use heat shrink tubing on these to cover up the join. So you definitely want to slide the tubing over the wires before you make the splice. Okay. And get the neutrals together, and if you have 2 black wires, the neutral is the one that's going to have the ridges on the side. You can feel it by texture. So neutral and neutral go together, and the way we're going to do this, we're going to use a lineman splice. The lineman splice is basically crisscrossing the 2 wires and then folding one over and then looping it around and around and around and around. And then you repeat the other direction on the other side, around and around and around. Once that's finished, you slide the heat shrink tubing over your splice until it covers the entire length. At which point you bring in the heat gun to heat the shrink wrap tubing and seal the join. Nice and tight, and we repeat on this side. This could be, the end of the line for this part, but it's a little loose and I want it to be a bit more stable. So I'm going to tighten the socket onto the cork with a little bit of electrician's tape. So the lower half of this, and I'm going to wrap. Now we have the light, and we have our socket. What I am going to do with this is use this G20 candelabra bulb. This is LED, and it's also blue. So I'm using a blue light within the blue float. Hold this in. And there we have it. light is within the float, and we are ready to net the thing. Now it's time for the rope work, macrame, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to lie to you, this is incredibly tedious. Before we get even to the tying part, I want to condition the rope a little bit. It's very hairy. There's all sorts of fibers coming off of it, and that's if you ever tried to work with it, knot it and stuff, it always gets in the way. So I'm going to burn the rope. This also has the effect of aging it, adding a little more texture. So it gives it that verisimilitude, that patina of age. So at least that's what I like to tell myself. Don't need a lot of fire, just a little flame. And just lightly brush it along there. The flame will catch those little fibers and singe them all away. Really quick, it makes quick work of them. And we've got 100 feet of rope here, so I'm gonna be at this for a while. Fortunately, the process for netting it is straightforward and simple. And by simple, I mean simple to screw up. There's a lot of knotting involved when you tie this net. And even though the knots are very simple, it's easy to go left when you should have gone right, or zig when you should have zagged or something. And you don't really notice this until you come back around and realize, oh crap, that looks like a big mess. Fortunately, unlike with the glass, when you screw up, the glass breaks and you are just completely out of the picture. When you screw up with the knots, you just work your way back, untying everything, and then start over again. Can you tell that I've done this before? So, first off, got a piece of bamboo. You can use anything that's roughly cylindrical, and I chose this because it's about the same size as the nipple on the bottom of the glass floats I'm working with. And what we're doing is using this as a guide. We're going to work the net around this just so we have a consistent idea of where we are and how we're doing. As far as the knotting itself goes, I do not have this innate knowledge of that, but fortunately there's a website out there called BatJack Ltd, BatJak Ltd.com. I will include a link to it in the notes below. This guy has done tons of fish float lamps, and not only does he do this net, but he's got several other really cool types of netting approaches as well that you can try if you're really feeling ambitious. But I went to his website and printed out each of the steps here, and I use this handy sheaf of papers as a reference guide when I'm tying my knots. So the first thing we want to do is get a section and loop it and then once we have it looped, we're going to take the loose end and coil it all around. And when you're tying, not so much at this stage, but when you get a little farther along, you want to make sure your knots are really tight, because the rope is going to want to loosen and sag later after it's had time to sit and adjust. And the last thing you want is a saggy net on your nice pristine fish float lamp. When you've gone all the way around, take your long section of rope and you're going to make a loop. And the size of this is a couple inches at the most. This is going to form the ring around the bottom. Once you have your loop, you're going to take the long section of rope, pull it through the middle, loop it over the top, and capture that loop. So you're essentially forming your first knot. Pull it tight. You want it to be strong and secure and snug. Don't worry about this. Just ignore the loose tail right here. We'll deal with that at the end. So you have the first loop in your compass rose. Now, for the rest of the way, we're going to go around, repeating this. Make a loop, then capture it all the way around. And you want to make sure, as you do this, you pull these all nice, tight, and snug. We don't want any sagging happening. And you want each of the loops to be roughly the same size. And this is something that the more you practice, the better you get at. Now, once we have it all the way through, we're going to pull it tightly so it will form a nice snug knot. Okay? And we repeat the process. Loop it over, slip it through the bite. We want to try and keep these roughly the same size, and here we go again, back through the loop. And we are going to do this all the way around. Then when we complete that row, we do it all the way around again. And we continue to grow the net outward until we have enough to fully enclose our glass fish float. And again, pull it tight. Once the net is sufficiently woven out and far enough to enclose the fish float, now it's time to tie everything together. Literally, take the loose end of the rope and along the top of the fish float, stitch all of the loose loops together by weaving the free end of the rope back and forth across the top of the float in a star-like pattern, pulling it tight each time until all of the loops that form the outer extremity of the net are pulled together completely. Once you have this completely stitched together and pulled tight, now it's time to form the hoop that will suspend the float and the light. Make one loop, approximately 6 inches of the rope, then run the free end of the rope underneath the crosshatch pattern that you established on the top of the fish float. Make another hoop, repeat that a third time, so you have 3 hoops of rope, approximately 6 inches long, on the top. Now, you should still have, a foot or more of free rope. Use this to twine it around the bottom portion of those 3 hoops. You're going to use that to secure them in place. Once you have enough, 5 or 6 times around the base there, take the free end of the rope again and slide it through, thread it through that loop of hoops there down the middle of what you just tied.
take your free end of the rope and then tuck it down through the coil of 5 or 6 loops around the whole structure, and then pull it through. This is going to act as a knot to secure everything so it doesn't come unraveled. Once you have everything pulled tight, take a sharp knife or scissors and trim the excess so it's flush. Do this on the top and the bottom of the netting, the part that you had a loose piece of rope hanging off the bottom. Just trim that flush and you're done. You have your fish float lamp ready for the insertion of the light that we made a few steps ago. You're good to go.
And that, friends, is how one makes a glass Japanese fish float light. I will admit I was surprised at how simple and straightforward it is. Now, it's simple, but it is time consuming, and that's the main issue. If you have the time to invest in this and the patience to drill through a ½ inch of glass or more with the proper drill bit, then you too can make your own Japanese glass fish float lamp. And I'm kind of giddy with this, as you can tell. I've practiced and made multiple ones of them. They add so much tiki aesthetic to any tiki space that you have. They're a lot of fun, and if you can get the tourist lights for relatively inexpensive, then they make just as nice lights as the actual authentic ones that float in the Pacific Ocean and end up on our western shores. So, until next time, from the Mystery, aloha.